So let's talk Taiga. So this is something I've already talked a little bit about, but I want to go into more depth, not just to talk about Taiga, but to explore a little bit of a juicy topic, which is going to get us in trouble. We're actually going to get demonetized for this, but I want to educate folks on the law regarding, and this is going to be really fucking spicy, regarding the Miller test in obscenity. And also we'll talk about the definition of what is quote unquote illicit pornographic material. Once again, this is for educational and legal purposes only. We will not be showing anything spicy here, right? We're keeping it PG-13, but it is talking about this topic and the legality of this topic because it is something hotly debated. And it's also something that is wildly misquoted on the internet because people who might be in Australia or in the UK or in Argentina, where there's certain different laws that apply, might not be talking the same language as someone in the US or in Germany or in Russia or in Japan, right, where they have different legal standards. So we're going to talk about that tonight because it's part of this topic. And it's something that needs to be clear, my stance on this, because my stance is, okay, well, what's the legal standard in your jurisdiction? And that's my opinion. Then I talk about law and I talk about legal education. Whatever your subjective morality is your opinion. And you can feel whatever way you want to feel about it. That's your decision. Be your own judge on that. So we're going to talk about that today. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because obviously we're talking about the VTuber Bungo Taiga. Let me just pull up their, I don't have like a generic picture of them. So let me just pull up a picture here. So let's see. Yeah, that'll work. So we've got, yeah, this will work. So we've got Taiga here. And Taiga is actually Canadian, which is relevant because they have a different age of consent and the laws will be different in Canada. But here's Taiga here. You got old Taiga over here, who's been streaming for a while, since 2020, debuting on Twitch, but also streamed on YouTube. And as we've said before, there's YouTube and Twitch can both be very fickle, and they both have their problems. Twitch likes to discriminate, particularly against female VTubers. They're really on those outfits that the female VTubers wear. So they kind of knock them because they compete with the e-girls, and the e-girls get jealous, they get salty, so they end up knocking down VTubers, especially the female VTuber models or female looking VTuber models. Whether or not there's a female behind them is irrelevant. Could be a dude with a voice changer, it doesn't matter. They look at the model and they say, it's too spicy, shows too much boob, strike on Twitch. YouTube is generally more clear about the models, like what's okay, what's not okay. However, what YouTube engages in way more fuckery about is their policies and what is appropriate for their community standards or not. Also, YouTube appears to be a little bit more vulnerable to mass reporting campaigns, where folks will go out and engage in mass reporting. So, so from what I noticed, because I was doing research on this, since the last video, it appears that like all of Taiga's Twitter accounts have been banned or suspended. So Taigaverse suspended, account suspended. X suspends accounts which violate the rules of X, right? And then you've got Torexaholic, which was another account. Also, user doesn't exist. So these have either been banned or deleted, right? Which is very interesting, right? Now, I also had time to read the Exoneration of Bungo Taiga, which is a document I would like encourage people who are interested in this topic to read. It's a particular document that talks about Bungo Taiga and the stalkers and the ex-mods who harassed him, essentially going after him, commissioning very inappropriate artwork, and all of that jazz. Now, one thing that comes up during this, and one of the reasons why this big controversy comes up, and I think one of the reasons why Nux got in trouble and then Marina made comments, is there is this talk about this commission. And even in the expose, which you get to the expose, right? At some point, Taiga did, and this is what it does say here, it privately commission certain content, right? Now, this content when say it's like neutral, blah, 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 right? It appears to be some sort of, lolly-ish content, right? Or content commission, right? What they're saying is that this was probably legal where it was made or whatever, not a crime. But you can make up your own opinion on how you feel about that commission, which brought me over to thinking about, well, let's talk about this law in general, right? And what is legal and what is not legal, because most people don't understand, well, is a fictional depiction legal or not legal? Well, it depends where you live. And this is actually not just a country by country, but in the US, it's state by state. So if you look at this map, and real quick, purple is the countries where all forms of pornography are banned. So in purple countries, you can't have any pornography. Now, let me be very clear about this. First of all, I live in Thailand right now. So see, Thailand's a purple country. Yes, there's absolutely no pornography in Thailand, right? Right? Same thing with Korea. I don't know how Korea wins. Like when you look at like most porn downloaded, Korea's like up there. Same with the Philippines, are like way up there. But both of them ban pornography. So note that even in these countries where they supposedly quote unquote ban pornography, right? It's quote unquote banned. Sometimes the enforcement of the law is not the same as the law on the books, right? So what's enforced versus what's not enforced is a different question, right? So that's a big thing right there. And then you've got purple states. So that's purple. Purple is all porn is technically illegal, right? Everything. Blue is interesting, including Canada. Blue says that the depiction, it doesn't matter if it is a fictional or real depiction. So, for example, Shadman. What Shadman did was he did a real depiction of a person, right? That's something that in other jurisdictions, the light blue jurisdictions, is distinct, like Germany, Finland, other places around the world, Brazil. In fact, Brazil has some pretty specific law on this, which says, I looked up a Brazilian case on this, which says, nope, if it's a fictional character, we don't care. It's not qualified as pornography. It's something different. It's art, whatever. It's exempted, right? So fictional characters being okay. Now I'm going to put a little asterisk on the US. I know the US is light blue, but let's put a little asterisk there, okay, for a second, because we'll talk about the US in a second, right? So in these countries, if it's a real person, it's not okay, right? So what Shadman did, regardless, would be illegal in either the dark blue or light blue country, because it is a real person, right? Yeah, but in the dark blue countries, even if it's a fictional character that is supposed to be under the age of whatever the age of consent is, it's not okay. So, for example, I believe in Canada, the age of consent is 16. So if it's like a 14-year-old or 15-year-old or 13-year-old or whatever, that would be not okay. Same with Australia and New Zealand, right? South Africa, Britain, UK, right? A lot of other countries follow those rules. Argentina, right? Mexico, versus the other places. Now, for the Americas, let me talk about US real quick. US, we follow the Miller test. Now, this is a very important test, right? And this is something that you guys should learn. And you guys might like know some quotes about that. Like, for example, what is, obscenity? I'll know it when I see it, right? You guys have probably heard that. Well, we have a legal standard. It's beyond just I know it when I see it. The legal standard is actually a three-pronged test. The law has a real hard-on for three-part tests. They love three-part tests. So the three prongs of the test, I found a little thing here. This is from the Free Speech Center, so credit to them. This was a challenge in 1973 named after the court decision Miller versus California. So in this case, oh, by the way, in this case, Marvin Miller mailed 5 unsolicited brochures to the manager of a restaurant and his mother containing explicit pictures and drawings of men and women engaged in a variety of sexual acts. Mr. Miller was prosecuted for violating a California law that made it a misdemeanor to knowingly distribute obscene material. So the question was a bunch of men and women fucking, was that, and pictures of that, was that obscenity? So Chief Justice Berger, and that's his real name, Berger. I mean, that is the most American judge name out there is Berger, right? He said this is the standard. The standard is, number one, whether the average person applying the contemporary community standards would find the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. Here is where I put the asterisk on America, because the community standards are different. In someone mentioned Utah earlier. In Utah, in Mormon country, they might have a different community standard than somewhere else. So that is a very subjective standard. This is not objective. The only objective part is kind of the reasonable person, so the average person, but the community is going to vary. And then number two, whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct specifically defined by state law. Another thing, so if state law doesn't describe what's there as, and it doesn't, though there's not a relevant state law, then it wouldn't apply. So if your state doesn't regulate this or doesn't care about this, then, well, it's not something that's punishable. So it's kind of logical. Your state has to have some sort of punishment or have to say, this is obscene, we find this obscene, and we have a law on the books that could convict somebody of this in your particular state. And then the third one, and this is very important, whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. So the biggest one to me here, I mean, literary is arguable, but is artistic. What is artistic, right? What is artistic? We can argue that all day and all night, right? So I can argue that art that is like lewd or nude or whatever else is artistic because, well, it's art, right? And art historically for the longest time has had a tradition of drawing nude figures. In fact, it's kind of a trope, right, of just drawing someone in the nude for art, right? Going back to the ancient Greeks, Romans, etc., right? Back to Africa, a lot of different cultures have just had the naked Venus, the statue of Venus, everything else. It's been an artistic thing for a long time. So whether or not it crosses that threshold is something a good lawyer could argue, could say it's one way or another, which is why the U.S. is such a clusterfuck, which is why I cannot say with any certainty in the U.S. and why I'm so careful. It's like, well, that may or may not be okay. Right? Depends on your state, depends on where you're at, depends on what's going on. I mean, if you're in San Francisco, at this point, I don't see why anything is obscenity in a place like San Francisco. But like I said, you go to somewhere like the middle of nowhere in Utah, and maybe you've got a different standard, right? So that's just a very good test on this little education here with this. Now, one of the most famous cases internationally outside the United States is actually involving, well, I found a picture here. This is not CSM or anything like that, but this is just, you got the Simpsons, right? Found some adult Simpsons. This is a DeviantArt. Who did this one? Miss Futurama 2012, whatever, right? Somebody did this art of like the adult Simpsons, right? The Simpsons is actually one of the most litigated topics internationally, all around the world. Why is that? Because the Simpsons are popular everywhere. The Germans fucking love the Simpsons. They love the Simpsons. I mean, to a weird degree almost. So you can go anywhere and find people that'll know the Simpsons. They grew up on the Simpsons. I grew up on the Simpsons. I watched Simpsons with my dad, with my mom, with my brothers. We watched the Simpsons very often. Now, we watched it way back in the day when I was a kid, right? I haven't watched it in years. I know it's still technically running, right? But that said, different countries have ruled differently about The Simpsons. So some countries have said that if you depict, because there were adult depictions and there were child depictions of them, but there were depictions of, let's say, the characters from The Simpsons in the nude, right? And they were depicting The Simpsons in the nude. And when that happened in Australia, they clearly said that The Simpsons, that nudes of the Simpsons characters are illegal. You cannot do that because the characters are under the age of 18, right? So that's illegal. You go to jail in Australia for that, right? However, same thing in Germany, not a problem. In the US, it's complicated because there was actually another case involving The Simpsons, and they did not take it to trial. they did a plea deal and they changed the charge that he was charged with to something else, to a lesser crime. So it's like, are you actually guilty of it or not? I don't know. It's not clear, right? It isn't very clear. And so whether or not you're in trouble in the US, it could go one way or another, right? Which is very, very interesting. And that's what makes The Simpsons such an interesting case for this. Now, I get to that because, of course, we're wrapping this against Bungo Taiga and some stuff that was commissioned way back in the day. But that said, largely, going back to Taiga, Taiga was exonerated, particularly of many of the accusations that were there, and specifically of the accusations that people levied and said for one reason or another, especially calling them a PDF and everything else. Of course, the two main people that are brought up here are, of course, Marina VT. So yeah, they actually posted like this long thread. This is back in 2002 about why Taiga needs to be canceled, and went into all this kind of detail trying to cancel Taiga here for racism. And you can see the word right here. So this person did a lot of that, obviously reprehensible, potentially defamatory, right? Based on saying things that are inaccurate. You can't call somebody a PDF unless they're actually a PDF. And then the second person is Nux, right? So, and I had an opportunity to DM Nux, and of course he gave me his side of the story here. But let me just present Taiga's kind of take on this. So Taiga said, people like Nux will never speak up because he's a fucking coward. He knows he fucked up, and he knows putting any more of the spotlight will be bad on business. I thought you cared about the truth, bro. I thought you stood up for small creators. Now, from what I talked to Nux about, in Nux's opinion, he's apologized because he privately apologized to him and pinned a post on his page saying, hey, I apologize, I fucked up. Because to be clear, on a stream with Moist Critical, he said that Taiga was a PDF, which was incorrect. And he said it was an incorrect. He said it was an L. He also went on the Some Ordinary Gamers podcast and said he took an L on that and kind of apologized on that. Not on his own channel, on somebody else's channel, which is the criticism that Taiga gave. Taiga gave the criticism, dual criticism, that Nux didn't apologize on his own YouTube channel, that he didn't do a video specifically apologizing, and he didn't have Moist Critical back on to tell him, hey, this is incorrect. As well as saying that the number of likes that the pin post got wasn't the same as the amount of viewers that viewed the video that he was slandered in, essentially. So you can take that one way or another, whether you think Nux's apology is good enough or not. I have a mixed bag on that, insofar as I believe that, look, people fuck up and make mistakes, and you should be able to apologize for your mistakes if you fuck up, and you should be able to say, hey, I fucked up. I think it's really dumb to call people criminals, and I've said it multiple times on this. You should never call somebody something that they're not, right? He's apologized for that. He said to me he apologized for that, but it seems like Taiga doesn't accept that apology, right? So whether or not there's more that's merited, I'll leave that up to you. You guys can be your own judge, right? At this point, we've got some good and some bad news. Some good news on this is that this guy, Vintage Bass Archive, who is over here, who is at Femboy Archive YT, a weird stalker of Taiga, appears to have been, so they put here, that they reported them. I felt like my reports were valid, right? If Taiga doesn't make money on lewd clickbait, maybe Taiga will finally upload gameplay. So trying to force them to upload gameplay and make the content they want, really fucking weird, right? But of course, this person, Vintage Bass Archive, as you can see here, has been getting banned off of X. So they got this other account, Vintage Fender, here. This one got banned off of X. So there's people that are harassing Taiga that are getting banned right now, which appears a certain amount of justice there. But in the ultimate case, the ultimate conclusion here, it's the same as what I said the other day. What will help Taiga is social media campaigns and people getting out there and retweeting. That's the only thing that helps. You can call lawyers, you can do everything else, but a lot of times that shit does not help. So it's just retweeting it and getting their attention on it. Literally, that's what does it. So, And it's sad, but I'm just, look, as a lawyer, I tell you when the law is efficient and when the non-law is efficient. And that's why I'm a business lawyer. We're in the business. My clients, people I work with, and even people I work with on stuff like immigration, setting up companies, doing contracts, they want to get fucking results. They don't care about, oh, let's go sue, or we need to go to court, or we need to be on TV. They don't give a shit about any of that. They want to make money. They want to get their businesses up and running. And Taiga is a VTuber, and VTuber's business is being on social media, is being on YouTube, is being on X, is being on Twitch. So the only thing you can do is to get them back on that by pressuring those people in social media. So go ahead, retweet that, tag them, get them back up. That's the only way to do it.